Hello friends, welcome back to another video and another book video because it is the end of the month, which means it's monthly wrap-up time, which is one of my favourite times of the month because I love listening to what everyone else has read over the month and just reflecting on what I have read. And I have had another record-breaking reading month. I'm just so obsessed, I guess, at the moment with reading, and I'm just having the best time. And so I'm very excited to talk about my reads this month and share with you guys what I've been reading, what I've been loving, what I haven't loved as much, and yeah, just chat all things book. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Kirsty. I'm 26. I live in Adelaide with my little family. I have 2 beautiful daughters, a lovely husband, and a crazy kelpie dog. And I just vlog my life mainly and then upload some book content whenever I get the chance. So it is currently the 31st of May when I'm filming this, so we are filming, editing, uploading real time. And I have read a lot of books this month. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 books. 2 have been audio, 10 have been books. So let's get straight into it. Now, the first book I finished was the audio book of Daisy Jones and the Six, and I ended up loving it. I wasn't sure how I was going to go with Daisy Jones and the Six because I hear so many good things. Obviously, it's just been made into a show on Amazon Prime, I think it is, and everyone honestly has been raving about it. I know most people who have read it have rated it 5 stars, but I really struggled when I tried to read the physical copy with like the layout of it because it's all set out as like interviews, like it's this person said this and then this person said this. I really struggled to like immerse myself into it. And then I heard Rach say that she listened to it on audio and it was a full cast audio, and so it was literally just like listening to interviews, and it was so good, and I ended up devouring it. I rated it 5 star in the end. I honestly couldn't stop listening to it. I think I listened to it within like 2 days or something, had it playing constantly and just frothed it. I loved the story. It felt like, I don't know how Taylor Jenkins Reid had it in her brain to make something like that, because it just really feels like they were a real band. Like, it was so cool. So if you don't know what Daisy Jones and the Six is about, I'll be very, very shocked. But it's basically interviews of how this girl Daisy joined a band called the Six, and they became Daisy Jones and the Six. And it's basically like all of these interviews with all of the band members and people around them, like the producers and friends and stuff like that. And they basically, it's like set into sections of the years, like in the 1970s basically, and like how their lives planned out. And it was just really cool, and I really loved it and devoured it in the end. The next book I read was... oh, I read more of them than I realised. Sorry. Please hold. I didn't bring all my books with me. The next book I read was Insatiable, which was the 3rd book in the Cloverleaf Farms series. Now, you guys know I'm just obsessed with these covers, but this one was... I only rated this one a 3.5 stars. It wasn't my favourite in the series. It was okay. This one is about Noah and Meg, and I don't know why I just didn't connect as much with Meg as I did some of the other sisters. And this book was good. I did enjoy it. If you don't know what the Cloverleaf Farms series is, it is a series of interconnecting standalone book series. Each book revolves around a different Sawyer sister, and the Sawyer sister is 5 sisters, and their parents own, and they all work, well, some of them work at their family business, which is Cloverleaf Farms. So yeah, I really enjoyed the whole series. I ended up finishing it this month and enjoyed this one. It wasn't my favorite, 3.5 stars. It was, I can't even remember what it was really about. So obviously this one hasn't really left me, like, if I can't really remember it, and it obviously wasn't that good. It is about Noah is the deputy, like the sheriff, and they're basically, I think it was a Friends to Lovers. Honestly, I can barely remember what this one was about. So it was okay, but not my favorite in the series. I then read an amazing book called Next of Kin by Hannah Bonham Young. Now, I did talk about this in one of my vlogs a couple weeks ago when I was reading it. This author only has 2 books out so far, and she has a 3rd one coming out in July. So I'm hoping to read her next book in June, like her 2nd book in June, and then the last one when it comes out. They're not all connected, but the first one that I read this month was called Next of Kin, and it was so good. It had me hooked literally from the first page. It was about a girl called Chloe, and she basically gets a phone call from social services saying that she needs to come to the hospital because her birth mum, who she hasn't spoken to in years because there was a lot of drama there, has given birth to a baby and did not know she was pregnant. This baby was super premature, and basically the mum cannot care for this baby, and she is her next of kin. Her mum has requested that she look after this baby, which technically Chloe is her sister, half sister. And so Chloe then obviously sort of has no choice because she's not going to leave this child to have any type of upbringing similar to her own. She has so much trauma around her own upbringing that she doesn't want to do that to another baby, and so she takes this child in, but because she can't technically afford it, she is working like part-time, she hasn't had her job for very long, and it's kind of freelancy, so she doesn't have like proof really of being able to afford it, even though she knows that she could. She doesn't have the means to show that she can afford to have this child, so she gets put in this program where she ends up house sharing with someone else who is in a similar situation. He is trying to get custody of someone and they end up living together, and his name is Warren. So Warren and Chloe get put in this house, so it's forced proximity. They're both sort of living their own little journeys, and it's basically like, we are strictly roommates, you live with your little newborn, because then like the baby comes home. So Chloe is then catering for this newborn Willow, and Warren is trying to get custody of his little brother who is deaf. So very interesting. It turns out Chloe knows sign language, so that's really cool. She can communicate with the brother because her dad was deaf, and obviously it's a romance, you know, we go from there. But there's a lot of, I don't know, it was just so interesting, and I loved that it was so much more than just a love story. There was really interesting dynamics with their friends and stuff, like his friends and her friends, and then their relationship, how it bloomed. I just really loved it. I really loved both of the characters. I loved the brother. He was really funny, and he was like 15 or something, and I just really, really loved this book, and I devoured it, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I just thought it was such an interesting premise and so much more than just a basic love story, and I just absolutely loved it. So if you haven't heard of Hannah Bonham Young, I had not heard of her, but her books are on Kindle Unlimited, so I highly recommend giving her the chance if you are looking for a new author who you have not heard of before, because yeah, I really, really enjoyed her stuff, and I'm really excited to read her next 2 books, and she just is writing stories, I think, that are important as well as beautiful. So highly recommend checking her out. I rated Next of Kin 5-star, and I absolutely loved it. The next book I read was Magnolia Park's A Long Way Home. Now this book is chunky. I think it's like over 500 pages, 525 pages, which is a lot for a romance. And if you know, it took me a little minute to get into Magnolia Park. First book I didn't love. It took me probably until 60-70% to really, really enjoy it. But once I did start enjoying it, I then read Daisy Hates, which I absolutely loved, and then this one I really, really love. But I ended up actually rating this a 5-star and absolutely devoured it. I do think Jessa Hastings' writing style just took me a minute to get used to because it's so different to anything I've ever read before. But I'm now just hooked, and I'm so invested in these stories, and I'm so obsessed with these characters. It's really weird rooting for people who have not been nice to each other. Like, it's a very strange experience. But I loved this. If you don't know what the Magnolia Parks is about, I've spoken about it on my channel. I'm sure you've heard it all over the internet. But Magnolia Parks universe so far is 4 books. 2 are Magnolia Parks, 2 are Daisy Hate. So this is the second Magnolia Parks book, and it is basically just a series of books set in London. Basically a bunch of rich people drama, toxic relationships, there is drug use, there is just so much toxicity everywhere basically, and just people who are super, super rich living very unrealistic lives. And although I would never ever want a relationship anything like Magnolia and BJ, the love they have is very, you're the one for me, and it's just very interesting and very juicy, and I really enjoyed this and just devoured it. Next book I read was Unbreakable, which was the 4th book in the Cloverleaf Farm series. Again, this one was not my favorite. It was okay. It was about the oldest sister, and she had recently gotten a divorce. She has 2 kids and sparks up a romance with another divorcee. He was good. I didn't feel their connection quite the same as, I really liked the younger sister's stories basically a lot more than the older 2. But yeah, this one was okay. Again, a 3.5-star, nothing groundbreaking, but overall I have enjoyed the series as like comfort reads. This one was okay. Again, not my fave. And I then jumped back into the world of Magnolia Parks, and I read Daisy Hates The Great Undoing, which is the 2nd Daisy Hates book, the 4th Magnolia Parks universe, and I loved this. I definitely prefer Daisy over Magnolia as far as the books go. Like, I was obsessed with this. Like, I could not stop thinking about it, and I just really, really enjoyed this. I did talk more about this in my last reading vlog, so if you want to hear my thoughts a little bit more detailed, feel free to check that out, as well as my thoughts on Unbreakable. These were both in a reading vlog recently, so if you want to hear my thoughts a little bit more and a bit more detail about both of the stories, I recommend watching that. But 5 stars, I devoured this. I loved it. I had so much fun with it, and I I had a bit of a book hangover after it, and now I'm very sad that we have to wait quite a while for any more Magnolia Parks universe. I know that the next Magnolia Parks, I believe she's finished writing the draft or something like that, so it shouldn't be like too long, but also they're not coming out, you know, next month or anything, so we have a long time to wait. I then read Happy Place by Emily Henry. Now again, this is in my reading vlog, so if you want to hear my detailed thoughts, I highly recommend watching that. However, I do think my review has slightly changed since I've had longer to digest this. I think I'm gonna up my rating to a 4.5 star because I can't think of anything actually wrong with this book, and I keep thinking about it. It's very much stayed in my head, it's stayed in my mind, and I think that's a really good thing in a book. Whereas obviously like these that I can barely remember who the characters, like I can barely remember the stories, even though it was literally all I was reading at one point. Like my whole brain was taking up this information and it's forgotten it already. Meanwhile, my brain is still thinking about this. Proves to me that it was a very good book. It didn't quite give me a 5-star feeling, but I am thinking it was like a 4.5 because it was just amazing. And I did struggle a little bit. I think Harriet is a much more of an overthinker and an over anxious person than I am, and I'm not. Like I will have uncomfortable conversations when I need to, whereas she was very people pleasery, which is like it was I don't know what to say. It was represented so well, and I think the depths that Emily Henry can go to make a character feel real is incredible, and I loved that. And I loved the friendships, I loved the found family in this, and I did like the relationship in this, and yeah, I just really loved this and will probably read it again. I do think Emily Henry just has such an incredible way of writing descriptions and characters, and I just loved it. So yeah, bumping my score up to a 4.5 because I really loved this. Then I read the last book in the Cloverleaf Farm series, and this one I did really enjoy. This one was definitely better than the other two. I think I rated this a 4. I rated this one a 4-star. I really enjoyed this one. This one was about April, and I just loved her story. I think I spoke about this in my reading vlog too. April was maybe my second favorite sister. I think it probably goes Franny, then April, then Chloe, then like Meg and Sylvia tied her bottom. I really enjoyed this. She was awesome. I loved her character. I love the male main character. I have this problem where, because I'm reading too many books, I forget everyone's names. Tyler. I really loved Tyler. I really loved April. I loved their relationship. I loved how it blossomed. I love she had a baby when she was 18 who she gave up for adoption, and the guy that she had gotten pregnant with, he then went and was like an NRL star, and they never really spoke again after being really good friends in high school. They were never really like in a relationship or anything, but had a one-night stand together. She told him she was pregnant. She told him she was getting rid of it, and that was sort of that. They then bump into each other back when he comes back to Cloverleaf Farms, and yeah, it's just amazing. I loved it. I loved their story. I loved her. I loved him. It was awesome. Small town vibe, my fave. So I would almost recommend like reading the whole series just to get to this book because it was so good, and I rated it a 4-star. Then I read Taylor Jenkins Reid, One True Loves. Now you guys know I have wanted to read this forever, and I always knew that this book was going to be amazing, but I did not expect it to break me the way it did because I was in tears so many times reading this book, and I absolutely loved it. It was a 5-star. I knew it was going to be a 5-star because I already knew the premise of the book, and I knew it was something I was going to love. So if you don't know what this story is about, it is about a girl named Emma, and she has a high school sweetheart. She has loved him since they were really young. They got together in high school, and they then traveled the world together. They got married. They are living this amazing life together, and one day he goes on a helicopter to do a job, and the helicopter goes missing, and he is pronounced dead. So she then has to grieve him and is heartbroken and has to move on with her life, and eventually falls in love again and finds, you know, she accepts that Jessie isn't going to be here anymore, and she has to move on if she's ever going to live like her life again, and she can't just stay mourning forever, and she can't just live in this bubble of grief for the rest of her life. And so she manages to fall in love again with this guy Sam, and they are engaged, and then she gets a phone call and Jessie is alive. So then she has to figure out, does she go back to her husband who she has all these years of memories with? They were together for a decade. She traveled with him. He was her first true love. Or does she stay with Sam, who she has built a life with now and has grown with in the past few years? And it's just amazing. And it was so heartbreaking, and just, oh my gosh, I could not stop thinking about this book when I wasn't reading it. I couldn't stop talking about it. I was asking Hayden what he would do. Like, I just, wow, this book was amazing. 5 stars. I will recommend it to anyone, especially if someone needs a book to cry, because I cried lots of times because there was a lot of heartbreak, because obviously there's these 2 people that she loves and they both love her and she has to choose who's right for her, and it was just incredible, and I just could not recommend this book enough. So good. Then I finally finished A Court of Mist and Fury. Now, if you have watched recently any of my vlogs, I've been reading this for a hot minute because she's a big boy and she was very intimidating, and I obviously, as you've seen all the other books that I've been talking about, I'm not a fantasy reader. This is my first time dipping my toes into fantasy, is with the ACOTAR series, and I don't know if it's because I've just had another baby, but my brain struggles to remember and struggles to keep up a little bit in fantasy. However, I love this. It did take me a little minute to get into it, but I never at any point was I not enjoying it. Even if I was reading it slowly, even if I was having a break, even if I was only reading 20 pages in a day, I was always really loving it. It really just took me a minute to really get addicted and obsessed and to keep wanting to read more, like right now. And I ended up actually listening to a lot of it on audiobook because I found it easier to digest sometimes. But I loved this. I love Reese. I love Cassian. I love Moore. I love the characters that came into this book. Oh, yeah, this book was amazing. I love Reese. He's my favorite. And I love Vera's character development. I loved the storyline. I just loved like most of this story, and I'm very, very excited to get to the next one. So I rated this a 4.5 star. Loved it. I'm even more intimidated to pick up the next book because it's even bigger, but I am enjoying the series. And even though I'm reading them a lot slower than I read my small town romance books, I am enjoying it a lot. So I haven't read ACOTAR. I would be very surprised. Oh, if you read fantasy and you haven't read ACOTAR, I'd be very surprised. But I would say that this is a good series to start with fantasy. As someone who has never read fantasy, I am enjoying this a lot. So then yesterday I finished Flawless by Elsie Silver on my Kindle, and I loved this as well. I rated this a 4 stars as well. I really love the small town country vibes as always. If you don't know what Flawless is, it's really doing its rounds on the internet at the moment, which is why I decided to pick it up. And it is about Rhett and Summer, and it is a cowboy romance. So Rhett is like a bull rider and lives on a farm or on a ranch, and it's just so cool and so fun, and it's giving McLeod's daughter, it's giving city girl in the country vibes, and I just love the feel and really have enjoyed it. And I'm really looking forward to the next 2 books, or next 3 books I guess, in this series, because I think there's another one coming out. So if you don't know what the Chestnut Springs series is, this was the first book, Flawless, and it is again like interconnecting standalone books. Different brothers have different stories, and I think the 3rd one's not even the actual brother, but like their family friend. And yeah, Rhett is a bull rider, and basically he has been a little bit silly in the media recently, and basically Summer gets hired to be like his PR babysitter, basically to make sure he's making good choices in public and to make sure he's not doing anything that could get sponsorships taken away from him, as he had just had before. Now there's a little bit of like forbidden romance in there because Summer's dad is actually the one, like she works for him and he has hired her to babysit Rhett. So a bit of like a don't touch my daughter situation, and then also she's trying to be professional as well. Like her job is not to fall in love with the bull rider who she's working with to like keep in check sort of thing. I also really enjoy at the start of every chapter there's like a little text situation going, and it's like either Rhett and Summer texting or Summer texting her dad or her friend or something, and it's like always a few lines of like a text conversation, and I just loved that little touch. I don't know. And yeah, I just loved this story. I flew through it in a few days, 400 pages, smashed it, really enjoyed it. Not a 5 star. I feel like 5 stars, it's got a really, I don't give many books a 5 star. 4.5, 4 to me is an amazing book. I loved this, a 4 star, frothed it, would highly recommend. I'm very excited to see how the rest of the series go. I've been watching other people's book videos on it, and apparently the 3rd one seems to be the fave, so I'm very excited. And then for my last and final book, I finished it just this morning, and it was an audio book, and it is I Don't Need Therapy and Other Lies I've Told Myself by Toni Lodge. And if you don't know who Toni Lodge is, she is an Australian personality. She has a podcast called Toni and Ryan. She has done a lot of stuff on like radio, and she's just a bit of a legend, and she does a lot on TikTok and Instagram, and I just am a really big fan of hers. And I saw her that she had just finished doing the audiobook, and so I downloaded it on my library app. If you do not have a library app, I highly recommend, especially if you enjoy audiobooks, because they're free. And I just really, really enjoyed this. So I have the Libby app is what I used to download that, and it's how I listen to pretty much all of my memoirs. Especially I love memoirs that are narrated by the author, and I just love Toni Lodge. I loved this. I don't really rate memoirs because it's like a personal thing, but I flew through this. I've literally listened to the whole thing in 2 days, and I just love her. And it was really sad, and I cried lots because her mum passed away, and so she tells lots of stories about her mum and about her grief, and it just sort of broke my heart 800 times, and I cried many times, which was weird for Hayden because I was literally just walking around the house with my headphones in and then crying. But I highly recommend, especially if you're a fan of Toni Lodge or like the Toni and Ryan podcast. It was just awesome and I loved it. And so that is the 12 books that I read in the month of May. I had the best time reading. I've just had so much fun, and I'm just absolutely loving books and reading and being in this little world. So I hope you enjoyed listening to all my thoughts and feelings on the books I read, and I'm very excited for this next month of reading. I know that there are a few books coming out this month. It's coming out, there's a specific book coming out in June. Oh my god, what is it? It's like the next book in a series or a book. Crimson River, the next Eden book, is coming out this month, so I'm very excited to read that in June by Devney Perry. Very excited for that, and yeah, there's so many books that I want to read, and I'm just having the best time. And yeah, I'm gonna wrap this video up because I've been talking for so long. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please let me know what you read this month, what you enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy. If you've read any of the books that I have read and have similar or opposing opinions, I love hearing. I mean, it makes me sad when people don't like books that I like, but I love hearing like people's difference in opinions in books. I think it's so fun, and although it kind of makes me sad, I do love hearing when people don't like the same books as me, and just like that they can get a totally different experience out of the exact same words. I think that's so cool, and I love that we all, due to our own experiences, have such different opinions on books, and it's just the best. So yeah, feel free to chat me with any of your thoughts. Feel free to DM me on Instagram. I love chatting books in my Instagram DM, and I hope you just had the best day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video, which will be very soon. Bye.